Hello. So this is just to help some of you with the current writing task, the activity which I've given you first day back from Easter. I know I'm cruel. So this is just the table which you should have already filled out. I think it was like lesson 11, maybe a lesson 10, where I asked you to complete a table comparing winter swans and neutral tones. Alright, so I haven't crossed everything on here, but it should hopefully just give you a good brief overview so that it can generate some ideas for your written essay this week. So winter swans, neutral tones, you should have annotations on both. If you do not, I have videos on both of them, so please look at them. Now, the tone in winter swans, although it's not completely positive because it's a mixture, actually, I'm going to definitely develop that point. You've got negative and you've got a positive tone. It's a little bit defeatist at the beginning where they're just like, oh no, we're drowning in water, this ain't gonna work. And then they they look at the swans and they're like, oh, it's not too bad. If they can do it, so can we. So it's like the positive negative tone there. In comparison to quite literally a neutral tone, as it does say by the title, Thomas Hardy has really made the narrator sound pretty, definitely not enthused, not excited about the relationship at all. Kind of a sense of almost bitter hatred towards the person who they've had some sort of romantic affection towards, or used to, way back in the day. Now, there's a really unique kind of comparison which would be good to highlight in your writing. So the tone or the speaker kind of overlaps into the speaker point here. But in Winter Swans, the speaker is very active. They want to make the relationship work. They're not willing to give up yet, in comparison to neutral tones where the person is very passive. It's also because it's looking back. In comparison to Winter Swans, it's looking back in the past to a previous relationship that they had and that they broke up with. I'm going to develop that as well. It's in the past. It's like a past relationship. So they, although they can't really act on the problem because it's in the past, they could probably message them again or whatever. But they're not really willing. Didn't sound like they tried to sort out their problems, but it just got to that point where they're like, nope, not gonna work. Okay, so just kind of moving on. As I said, I just overlapped a little bit in speaker, so it doesn't matter which box you got that in. The speaker in Winter Swans. He feels helpless at first, but willing to battle the problems, as I've said, and he believes that arguments are a natural part and a natural course of relationships, which is true to a certain degree. Then neutral tones. He was obviously not sure about the relationship and the way that the relationship was. Why that was is ambiguous. It's not very clear. It is implied that the female, in some way or another, broke his heart. Whether that's because, it was a bit more of a Porphyria's lover, him just being a bit, crazy, and believing that she didn't love him enough or whatever, is not said. But it's very, very clear that clearly the narrator feels that the relationship wasn't working either side. They obviously feel very bitter towards that person as well. You can tell by the use of the negative imagery. It's almost like they're just looking back at it in a kind of depressing way, and scrutinising, criticising their relationship, and all the misery they kind of endured by staying together. It reflects a romantic poet's interest. So Thomas Hardy was a romantic poet, as I said in the video, because he accepts that nature takes its toll. He accepts it. Actually, I'm going to change that word. He accepts it. He's more kind of. He's kind of reluctantly. Okay, it's fine. He reluctantly, which means he doesn't do it with like. Wait 1 second. I'll explain that a bit. So he reluctantly accepts that nature takes its toll. That if a relationship's not going to work, it's not going to work. There's no point fighting it. It is what it is kind of attitude. Reluctant means that it's just, you don't do it with full will. You just do it kind of maybe kicking up a bit of a fuss about it, but doing it anyway. The same way you might reluctantly do your chores. Alright, so we move to form. Excuse this makeshift Tipp-Ex job, which I did. Well, I don't have any Tipp-Ex, and it just looks really bad and unneat. Yeah, don't judge me. So the form in Winter Swans. There is a little bit of speech or dialogue at the end, which shows the positive change. It is, I mean, the form, there's not much to state about it. Form and structure overlap quite a bit, so I'm just actually going to move on from Winter Swans with form, and then I'll speak about it a little bit more in the structure box anyway. So neutral tones, the form is dramatic monologue, or it's possibly a dramatic monologue, because we don't hear the other person obviously speaking back to them. We only hear that one narrator kind of complaining about his miserable relationship. It's first person, the same way the form, you could write that down here actually. It's both first person, it's a personal experience of the speaker, so that is something that they have in common. I'm going to put that here. First person. Alright, so yes, the structure. So the structure in Winter Swans is 7 stanzas. The stanzas are uneven. The 7 stanzas are uneven number, obviously, so it could show maybe the unstable relationship, metaphorically convey that. It ends with 2 line stanzas, so it maybe to show that there's a conclusion, that they finally fit, they're finally even, they're happy, they're good. Then in comparison, we have the 3 verses that focus on the past, and then the last verse. The last verse is the current situation or his current feelings. The 3 verses focusing on the past could show how he's stuck and dwelling on the past. This is what I mean with the fact that he's obviously very bitter about this person, because although he's just like, well, you know, it was a boring relationship anyway. He's clearly, there's an element of him caring enough to look back at it. Yes, the imperfection of their relationship is also suggested through the rhyming structure. So it follows A, B, B, A, meaning that if there's 4 lines in the verse, the first and fourth line would rhyme, and then the second and third would rhyme together. I mean, the A letters that you can see here, it might metaphorically convey the fact there's no closure, there's no togetherness, they're separate, they're apart, there's no fixing it. And then we move on to language. So the language in Winter Swans, it is a big old extended metaphor of the swans, of course, to symbolise the purity of love and willingness to stay together, loyalty, commitment, all of that stuff. Actually, I'll just cross some themes there. Loyalty, commitment. Sorry, my handwriting is gross. Okay. The juxtaposition, also of, for instance, the pathetic fallacy of the clouds are giving their all, to the fact that, you know, there's the happy swans that are loving each other. The juxtaposition here could show that although they're in a negative state, the positivity is not too far away from them. You know, there's still positivity there. It could also convey the positive and negatives in relationships, how you argue, you make up, you argue, you make up. Then in contrast, you've got the juxtaposition used in neutral tones. For me, it could show quite differently the fact that they were different. They're different people. They're incompatible. Lots and lots of negative imagery, and more so certainly than Winter Swans. Maybe shows overriding sense of hatred in some ways. The themes, which you probably just already snuck a little look at. So with Winter Swans, there's the idea, of course, of love, loyalty, willingness to combat any problems that come your way, and commitment to the person you love. And then in neutral tones, you have, more depressingly, the loss, a sense of betrayal. And then breakup as well. I don't actually like breakup. Maybe just do betrayal of love and loss. Okay, I hope that this helped you. Let me know if I can do anything more to help you in your first task on your first day back. Thanks, guys. Bye.